Death Stranding easily is one of my favourite games of all time after experiencing it for a... Wait a minute.
I hope you're not about to do a Death Stranding video without me, Nathan.
No, Josh, I wasn't, I swear, I was about to...
Okay, good. I'm glad we understand each other, so let's do this.
Okay. When we play video games, it's so easy to forget the incredible amount of work that gets put into these worlds that are perfectly crafted for us. We take in these worlds like a work of art sitting on the wall in your house. You understand its beauty and you know the reason you bought it, but eventually it all just becomes white noise and blends into your day-to-day life like everything else within that house. Being in awe in the incredible backdrops of Tamriel, the dangers that lurk around Skyrim, living a full outlaw life in Red Dead Redemption, walking and going horseback in one of the most realistic rendered game worlds of all time, and of course you couldn't forget becoming a legendary witcher slaying the beasts which caused horror to the people of this world. Virtual worlds have become so common this day and age that we don't expect anything else. If we're willing to accept this as a normal standard, then level design has to change. I am very happy and over the moon to have my good friend Josh, your player 2, assisting me while we discuss how games like Death Stranding and even Breath of the Wild are changing the open world game as we know it, even if it takes one baby step at a time. When it comes to exploring worlds in video games, it can be done with such little ease this day and age. And I'm not just talking about the threats that are in the way, I mean the way you actually move throughout these worlds.
With growing player expectation, the number of games featuring open worlds has grown significantly. But developers taking the time to flesh them out, not just aesthetically, but mechanically in a way that feels exciting and rewarding, doesn't occur as frequently. With more advanced engines becoming more readily available for publishers to utilize, it's a lot easier to create big, sprawling worlds for players to explore. But if those wide open spaces lack thoughtfulness not only in layout but also in the principles of traversal, a bigger world won't guarantee a better experience.
In a game like Witcher 3, if you was to climb the top of a snowy covered mountain, you could do it with near to no risk of death. But instead you can do a full comedic sprint up the hillside in such a comedic fashion, taking in all the wonderful backdrops while you do it as well. And even if you gave yourself the same task in the Elder Scrolls Skyrim or even in Oblivion, you'll find yourself exploiting yourself with point of contacts just to bounce all the way to the top. And this just doesn't really immerse me in the way that I really expected to in these style of games. If someone gave you that exact same task in a game like Breath of the Wild, you'll probably have to take in a handful of considerations. Do you have enough stamina to get to the top? If not, how would you overcome this? With a potion, or maybe finding a different way round overall? Do you have warm enough clothes so you'll be able to actually survive the freezing cold tops of the mountains? Or even if not, how are you going to get around this? By using a fire sword to at least use it as a radiator on your back, or even having a torch to have a little bit of warmth coming off the flame. Or if not, go hunting and find some ingredients in the forest to at least make some hot food, which gives you at least a limited time resistance to the cold. All these thoughts and choices are very important to the world building of Breath of the Wild. This world actually has elements to how this world works and rules that actually match the world like ours. In both games like Death Stranding and Zelda, we're able to think with logic, and that's how we can achieve certain tasks. A way I want to use an example of this is within the first hour of Zelda. You'll come across an apple tree. Actually, you'll probably come across 100 of these throughout the entire game. But the simple task of just getting hold of an apple can really show the player how many different possibilities there could be to any outcome in this game. It almost encourages you to use your common sense here to get up the tree. You can just grab an apple by jumping at it, you can climb up the tree, you can throw something at the tree, you can even shoot an arrow at the apples themselves to make them fall, and if that does not work, why not just chop it down? And this is just barely scratching the surface of choice that this game really has.
Starting with how a player interacts with a tree is brilliant organic tutorializing. The player learns through experimentation and is rewarded when actions result in a way you'd reasonably expect. Swing a sword at a tree and you can fell it, but equip an axe and the process becomes more efficient. That is quietly exciting. Understanding that the environment reacts to your various tools in different ways gently reminds the player to more fully explore other aspects of the world's reactivity. If the business end of an axe can efficiently topple a tree, how might a snowy incline react to a smooth, sturdy metal disc?
In Death Stranding, the game gives you tasks to overcome obstacles that are in your way. But what they didn't actually tell you is that you're never not actually overcoming an obstacle. The world like this is very much like Zelda. The world is a hurdle that you're always overcoming, and you're always making micro decisions at every single moment. Sam must overcome the most basic of tasks to survive in this world. Make sure he doesn't trip over a rough terrain, how to get across a river without falling and being taken away by the stream. I've actually made it an important part of my gameplay to never actually leave the safety of my delivery bays without at least one ladder. You never know when you're going to need it. And I'm not just talking about climbing up or down things, I'm talking about using it as a bridge to get over said rivers, and a ramp for your bike to create such a nifty little shortcut to cut down that very much important delivery time. How we take in worlds such like this has shown me that having a big beautiful open landscape isn't enough anymore, but actually to have a world that has us thinking outside the box, that has us worrying about the weather conditions that hinder our movement, or the stamina and momentum of your character while sliding down a cliffside. Showing the struggles of your character don't only have benefits to the game's world overall, but the gameplay, and also how the player relates with the character as a person.
When we think about Sam as a character, his defining characteristics are reflected in the environmental challenges he must rise to meet. Sam is both literally and emotionally isolated. As a sufferer of aphantasmophobia, Sam fears physical connection with other people. He also struggles emotionally on account of past trauma. These quickly establish Sam as a very lonesome individual. Even when physically connected to a baby, he's warned not to think of BB as a person, but rather only as a piece of utilitarian equipment. Out in the game's world, physical challenges are numerous. Juggling your personal stamina against the harshness of the elements and destinations that require miles of painful traversal require careful planning of loadouts to keep Sam and BB safe. But more interesting than the in-your-face obstacles we expect from these virtual worlds is how Kojima layers moments of psychological reflection on top of it. Physically, you may be well equipped to make a delivery, and fate may tip in your favor with an uneventful trek from point A to point B. But even the uneventfulness feels abrasive on a self-reflective level. A big part of this is how audio is used in a deliberately sparse way. Where many open worlds will play music throughout your journey, Death Stranding only allows dramatic music to swell at moments that truly warrant it. It's a small decision, but one that gives real weight to the relief of finally finding a shred of civilization after an expanse of emptiness. Naturally, these moments are few and far between in a world as big as Death Stranding's. Most of your journeys are audibly punctuated only with gusts of wind, or clanking cargo boxes being repositioned. Save for the occasional grunt of protest from Sam or his plodding footsteps, there isn't much to keep your mind busy as you set out on each new delivery. Sam is largely left to his own thoughts during these moments, and by extension, so are we, further endearing us to Sam and his station in life.
I'm fucking done!
Player expression is a term used in gaming that allows the player to experiment with how they handle each and every other situation, the tools that enable you to do so, and the environments and physics that actually allow you to do these experiments as you wish. In Zelda, the idea that you may have to use your shield as a sled to quickly escape a freezing mountain, or even in Death Stranding to use a floating carrier as the same purpose, because the developers let you try these things, it's only logical that you expect to be able to do them. But that's not the case with every single game. Why in Skyrim can't I load up a bucket with stuff and carry it with me to the next town to sell it with ease? Why can't I stray off this path in story-driven focused missions in Red Dead Redemption 2 and try to do things my own way? These simple choices limit the ability that the player truly has to envelop and immerse themselves within these worlds. Something I've come to notice in the open world is world building itself. It's great and it makes you wonder what happened with these locations, or even what stories are here to be told. These games focus on something I want to call world bonding. They give you a set of rules, elements, and even logical way of thought to actually be able to survive and solve obstacles within this world. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that this is a brand new idea and we've not ever seen these sort of elements put in games in the past. Of course not. From Splinter Cell's use of lighting and how you manipulate it to your own use, or even to Half-Life 2 making groundbreaking physics, making you use your mind to solve puzzles in that sort of sense. But a game that I didn't expect myself thinking about quite a lot when it came to a game like Death Stranding is Alone in the Dark from 2008. Alone in the Dark was literally too big for its own boots. It fell apart, but as a game from the 7th generation, It really did show its true power. Real-time fire effects, physics-based puzzles literally everywhere, destructible environments, this game had it all. Simple tasks of smashing down a door could come down to you shooting off the handle, to beating it with a fire extinguisher, or even using that said fire physics to set the door on fire. You're able to think outside the box to overcome obstacles and even defeat enemies. This is more than a game trusting a player to work out how to get to A to B or how to get the next objective done, but instead understanding the bond between the player and the game itself. When a lot of people spoke about Death Stranding, they talk about it being a glorified walking simulator, but when was the last time in Skyrim you was really thinking about how you was handling walking up a steep hill or even down a mountainside? Or in Witcher, like I said earlier, climbing over those mountains and traversing different temperatures? When did having to worry about having the correct equipment or even to be able to stand up straight come into your mind when doing these situations? I personally believe world bonding is probably the most important step to next gen open world in gaming. Yes, mountaineering can be tough and a struggle, but you have to put in that work to help the player feel like they've actually achieved the impossible. That goes with the fourth wall breaking moments between the player and Sam, and I believe these really are special. This is Sam telling the player to keep it up, and even saying to himself that he lives for this shit. He knows that it's a terrible situation, but he makes you want to just keep pressing forward. He makes you want to keep going, and he's totally there with you. He understands the struggle, and though it may seem like Sam is always alone, you always feel like he's companion, or at least he always feels like yours during this adventure. When I was bullied as a kid where I grew up, I found myself actively doing what I could to avoid bullies on the walks to school and back home. Yeah, I took the long way round, but this was just to avoid pain and sadness. Yes, I would cut through people's gardens, and I would actually learn the layout of my whole area like the back of my hands, just to anticipate shortcuts and directions that I could take to at least avoid these bullies. And for me, Death Stranding perfectly hit that way of thinking. When there's bandits ready to steal your loot or BTs in the way wandering the lands, I found myself actively thinking about ways to get around these threats. Yes, maybe it would be longer, but I'm sort of used to this. Yes, I would have to use a resource or two, but that left me thinking kinda outside of the box. It didn't matter how much I had to use, and sometimes it didn't even matter how much time it took. I found myself only doing this to make sure I was safe and I could avoid danger at every moment I chose to.
And sometimes, just like in real life, we get unexpected help from someone we will never meet. Expanding on Death Stranding's picture of isolationism is a brilliant ray of hope that's not only thematically appropriate, but mechanically brilliant. In real-time cooperative multiplayer affairs, you have an extremely strong connection with your fellow players. You and your buddy might blitz through a horde of locusts in a Gears of War match with ease. Chiefly because you can communicate in real time, calling out enemy behaviors or coordinating to flank entrenched enemies on a particular portion of the map. While this is efficient, it's also extremely impermanent. If you played through several missions back to back, few moments would stick out in your mind save for the most dire-looking firefights where you barely came out on top. In Death Stranding, you can only communicate asymmetrically and in very limited ways. You might leave a simple sign displaying only an arrow in a snowy mountain range to help point other porters towards safe passage. But you aren't certain anyone will ever find what you leave behind, and aside from a rudimentary like system, you'll never know how much that small act might have meant to some other struggling player. On the flip side, you'll never be able to easily tell someone how much easier your life was thanks to a bridge they built, save for furiously mashing the like button as many times as the countdown timer will allow you. Taking moments of isolation or endangerment and subtly reminding you that no, you aren't as alone as you think, and yes, someone out there does care about you and your Sam's journey is a brilliant magic trick. The Death Stranding is able to achieve this environmentally, mechanically, and narratively really is something special that doesn't get nearly enough praise.
We're not saying here that the modern open world is rubbish. We're not saying here that your next Assassin's Creed or your next Skyrim, if it doesn't have these features, makes it immediately a bad game. But instead, I believe having a simple task of going up a hill or going down a mountain can really engage the player in new ways, in exciting ways for the future. It can make these worlds feel a lot more alive. It can add a sense of texture to every single situation you find yourself in. I'm not saying that the next Dragonborn should trip over a loose rock, but I'm saying that it would be nice to have to think about the environment and the elements that the world gives you, to think about how cold you could get to the stage you could freeze to death. Yes, I know there are plenty of mods out there that can actually change games like Skyrim to have these features, but to have it built within the game would be really exciting to see. It would add a sense of immersion that would really let the world feel alive. It will make it feel cold, or it will make it feel warm, and even it would just make it feel like it exists. And I think that's something that is so important, especially when it comes to these games. So the next time someone tells you that Death Stranding is just a glorified walking simulator, or that Breath of the Wild is a lifeless world filled with nothing to do besides going A to B and solving a few puzzles in the middle, think about what you actually have to do during these adventures. Think about the memories that you have playing these games. I find myself thinking about it not from the story standpoint, but the little moments in between. The moments where I struggled, or the moments where I found myself actually enjoying the peace and quiet for once inside these games, which can actually offer a challenge within the environments. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank Josh so much for coming on and actually collabing with me playing through these wonderful games. It's been a blast. I've had a blast making this. I hope you all had a good New Year's. I'm back on track. I'm going to focus on videos this year. I'm going to try and get at least one video out every week, if not every 2 weeks. And I'm actually going to focus on getting this full time. I'm really excited to see where this channel goes. And I want to thank you all for getting me to all the subscribers that I've gotten to. And it seems to be just getting more and more by the day. So let's see if we can get this to 1,000. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, Josh, for joining me. And of course, I'll see you at the next checkpoint.